What is going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs Raised, back with another Battlefield gun guide to bring to you, and today we're actually going to be looking over the last SMG that gets unlocked, which is obviously the most popular that's currently making its way around at the moment, because we're starting to get a few requests, and I can see a lot of people are gravitating towards this gun when they unlock it, and that is the K30 or the Chris Vector when you actually do so, depending on if you prefer the real world name. Now the K30 is a monster, it is a powerhouse, and it's definitely not something that you need to be sleeping on. The fact that it has, not to spoil obviously the episode, but it has probably the fastest time to kill outside of single shot weapons, and it is just insane. I could not believe it when I was doing some of the stats on this as to how fast this will actually melt. So what we'll do is we'll get into the stats as always, we'll get to those damage numbers and we'll explain to you how this kind of works, but just know that you do need to be using this weapon within inside its main operating kind of area, otherwise it will drop off very harshly for you. As always, make sure you drop a like and a video, subscribe on the video, it really does help the channel out, and we are starting to near that 2k mark, and we are planning to be able to do maybe some kind of like giveaway as soon as we hit that, so make sure you're one of those, and as always, let's get into the stats. So to start off, the K30 does clock in at 250 millisecond aim down sight time, which is very interesting because this actually turned out to be a little bit slower than something like the MP9, and that means that it doesn't always conform to that of what the SMG category already has. So so it seems to slow. It's only slight. It's not very much. It's like normally like an additional frame, so you're not really going to notice it. But just know that it does have a slower aim down sights compared to the others. When it comes to the magazines, we do have 5 to be able to choose from. These come in the form of the standard extended, the standard drum mag, the high power extended, and the subsonic rounds. Now these vary quite a bit when it comes to magazine sizes. So the standard extended comes in at 40, the standard drum mag comes in at 50, the high power comes in at 20, high power extended is 30, and the subsonic clocks in at 20. Just know that if you do go for some of these smaller mags, you will be burning through this ammo very, very quickly, because we're going to be looking at the rate of fire very shortly. But just know that when it comes to reloads, the K30 has like it feels like it takes an age to be able to reload, and that's just purely based on how fast you actually fire through the amount of ammunition. So when it comes to the standard extended, this clocks in at around about 2 seconds. When it comes to the drum mag, this clocks in at 2.18 seconds. The high power clocks in at 1.96. The extended high power comes in at 2.2, and the subsonic clocks in at 2.02 seconds. So it varies quite a bit, and obviously, you know, that drum mag is definitely very, very nice to be able to have on this gun, and it doesn't take too long to be able to reload that compared to some of the other mags. It will feel like it is, like I said, but it's just purely an aesthetic, it's just purely a placebo kind of effect, but just know that those extended mags, those drum mags, are actually pretty good attachments to be able to go for, and I would highly recommend that you get those unlocked as quickly as you can. When it comes to the rate of fires, like I said, these do vary a little bit when it comes to each of the attachments. So when it came to the standard extended, so these will be the main one that we're actually basing most of the figures based on. So the standard extended clocked in at 1,250 rounds per minute. When it came to the drum mag, this did drop a little bit down to 1232, but I think this might be down to frame rounding, so I do believe that's around about 1250. The high power clocked in at 1142. The extended mag for the high power also clocked in at 1148, so I believe that's probably going to be around about 1150 for both of those. And then the subsonic did clock in at 1180, so I do think that's going to be a little bit higher as well. So overall, these are very fast, these are very high numbers when it comes to rate of fire, and obviously these translate when we start looking at the damage numbers. So next up, we're going to have a look at the damage profiles, and we're going to group a couple of these together because the standard extended, the standard drum mag, and the subsonic all have the exact same damage profile. But you'll be interesting to know that this damage will drop off quite quickly, and it's important to pay attention to the actual numbers that we're going to be seeing on the screen. So when it comes to the standard and the subsonic, we're looking at 22 damage up to 10 meters. 11 to 20, we're looking at 18. 21 to 40, we're looking at 15. 41 to 75, we're looking at 13, and then anything that's after 75 meters will be dealing 12 damage. Now what this equates to is a 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 shot to kill. Now While those do sound terrible on paper, and I fully agree with you, most of the times that would actually be the case, the insane rate of fire on this gun does actually make up for it, because the time to kill, well, we'll cover the time to kill very, very shortly. Let's have a look at the high power first. So the high power's damage profile does actually change when it comes to the middle ground. So when it comes to anywhere up to 10 meters, we're doing 22 damage. 11 to 30 meters, we're doing 18. 31 to 40 meters, we're now doing the 15, and then 41 meters onwards, we're now doing 13. So there is no 12 damage. It will be anywhere between 5 to an 8 shot to kill. So we do actually make up for it. But obviously, this does affect your rate of fire a little bit. And while most of the times are very comparable, it does mean that the standard will actually kill a little bit quicker. It just depends on, obviously, it's not a bad attachment to be able to go for, but I do think that the standard pretty much has this beat when it comes to it. If we have a look at the time to kill, though, because I feel like that's probably the most logical to be able to go on to next, the standard and the sub, well, we'll go with the standard first. So the standard, because of its high rate of fire, around about 1250, means that we'll do, well, we're killing in 192 milliseconds, 240, 288, 335, and 383. Now that is insane. The fact that these times to kill are very comparable to things like well, the PBX, it's got it beat. The PP29, it's got it beat. There's pretty much no fully auto that's able to really compete with this. The only thing that actually comes close in my testing so far is the close combat attachment for the MP9. And the reason why it does that is because it has a higher base damage and the rounds per minute actually kind of make up for it. And they have the exact same time to kill when it comes to within 5 meters. So it's interesting to know that the MP9 is able to compete with this gun, but the K30 is basically just insane when it comes to it. Obviously, as it starts branching out a little bit, it's still very competitive. The only thing that really holds this back is the insane recoil, and that obviously means that you have to be able to pull your mouse straight down, or obviously on your analog sticks when it comes to your controllers. If we then move over to the high power mags, we're then looking at obviously, because it has a slower rate of fire, we're looking at 210, 263, 315, and 368. But obviously that 368 will extend afterwards, so really the high power only really helps you out when it comes to anything that's after 76 meters. That's the only time that it beats the standard mag in terms of time to kill. But when it comes to, obviously, you know, if you're starting to struggle for magazine kind of like capacity or any kind of like rounds or anything like that, it's definitely not a bad shout to be able to swap over to. So when it comes to barrel attachments, obviously we've got the standard like recoil mitigating ones, which are definitely very appreciated when it comes to the K30. Depending on obviously your playstyle, you know, how close up you want to be able to get, it might be better to be able to go for something that helps with the vertical if you're actually starting to struggle. But if you're absolutely fine with controlling that vertical recoil, then definitely go for something that's horizontal to be able to make it just so it's almost like a straight line, straight pull down. When it comes to the actual barrels, though, we only have the standard barrel, so we don't have any like short range, we don't have anything long range, or we don't have any extended barrel is what I meant to say. So that means our rate of fire is always going to be the exact same. So when it came to the standard mag, obviously 1250 rounds per minute, the bullet velocity clocked in at 390 meters per second. Now this is pretty bad, this is pretty pitiful, which means that when you look at the damage profiles and you think that you're going to be able to reach out to like 75 meters onwards, it's just not really going to happen. So therefore, this is purely dedicated to be a close-range weapon. It's purely dedicated to be able to take on infantry and obviously clear out buildings and all that kind of good stuff. So I'd purely just stay with that. I would not try and challenge anyone at any kind of distance. You're definitely better off going with the PP29 when it comes to that kind of case, if that's what you want to be able to do, because the added bullet velocity that gives you over the K30 just makes it so much easier. And the last thing for us to be able to look at is obviously how the sights affect our aim down sights. Now, I was quite surprised with this one. One, because obviously it definitely doesn't have any long range attachments. We are able to go up to a 3x, but anything that's like 3.5x and onwards we don't have access to. But also the fact that it got its own special kind of sight, which is the Exo Smart 2X. Now, this is only available on some guns. It's not available on all of them. But it's interesting to note that everything for the hollow sights all the way up to the UH-1 Smart as well as the Exo Smart 2X will not affect your aim down sights time. So actually all of these are really good options to be able to put onto the K30, and if you are looking to be able to extend your range out a little bit, I would recommend going for the Exo Smart 2X, because like I said, it just does not affect your aim down sight time whatsoever. But if you try putting on any of the hybrid sights, so the Ghost or the Maul, the TV2X, interestingly enough, and the Bravo 3X all clock in at 300 milliseconds, so these actually do slow you down by 50 milliseconds. So I would recommend staying away from those. You can definitely get all the work that you need done with the original iron sights and any of the hollow sights, and including the Exo Smart 2X. So therefore, you don't need to touch any of the hybrids or the other that kind of category either. So lastly, I just want to know, while I haven't done this for every single gun so far, I just wanted to explain how I currently run the K30. And the K30 is a very good gun, like I said. It's definitely designed for up close. I wouldn't recommend using it at any kind of like middle range or anything like that. But because of how good it is, I recommend using some kind of like laser sight. You can potentially use a suppressor, because the that first damage range, going from 22 down to 20, will not hinder your shots to kill whatsoever. So you can, as long as you're planning to use it within 20 meters, and because of the insane rate of fire that it has, it pretty much makes up for any kind of like downside that you're going to be losing from that 10% damage loss. So therefore, I do think a suppressor is definitely an option that you can use with this. I do think you probably should stay away from the heavy suppressors. I need to do a little bit more testing with that, but I think these actually reduce your damage a little bit more. So therefore, just for the time being, stay away from the heavy suppressors. If not, go for some kind of like barrel attachment that helps with your horizontal recoil control as well. Put on the laser sight, put on like a close range optic, like a Fusion, or maybe even a K8 hollow or something like that, and then just basically you can go around hip firing. I'd use the extended or the drum mag. That's down to personal preference. While the drum mag is very, very good and obviously holds that 50 rounds, I do prefer the extended mag, and I think this might just be like a placebo effect once again. Like I said, it feels like it reloads a little bit quicker, and obviously the stats kind of support that, but it feels like it reloads a bit more quicker than it actually says. And also the fact that I do think that 40 rounds is more than enough, and it gives me plenty of backup ammo, whereas if I just go for the drum mag, I've just got what's in the gun, and then I've got one spare left over. So that's purely how I run it. Let me know in your thoughts and in the comment section down below, how do you currently run the K30? So that pretty much wraps up everything that the K30 brings to the table, and overall it is a monster of a gun. It is insane, and I can see why everyone is pretty much trying to run this, especially on those infantry or those close quarters kind of combat maps. The K30 is brilliant, and I would highly recommend when it comes to like a loadout or anything like that, that you pretty much gear it more towards the close quarters combat, because obviously that's where it shines. So personally, how I run it is either a small grip, like a rattlesnake grip or something like that, that helps with accuracy while you're moving, or definitely a laser sight. I do think that the hip fire on this is very good to be able to just be able to compete with, and obviously keep your mobility up. When it comes to the barrels though, you can definitely get away with using a suppressor. I do think that the rate of fire on this pretty much more than makes up for the fact that you're losing 10% of your damage, and it doesn't really affect your damage profile that much, so therefore you are still being able to like compete and probably outperform most of the weapons still, even though you have that suppressor and like taking away some of your damage. When it comes to the magazines, I do prefer the standard extended personally, but that's more of a personal preference. I don't think the drum mag is definitely not a bad option to be able to go for. Those extra 10 bullets really will help you out. So by all means, you know, mix and match. I definitely run both, and then I'll also have like a high power extended just in case I need to fall back on any other ammunition. And then lastly, I'd probably use some kind of like close quarters combat, so kind of like sight when it comes to it. So either like the K8 or the Fusion Hollow is probably my main go-to, but the iron sights are pretty decent on this, so you can definitely get away with those as well. As always, make sure you actually do go try and get this gun unlocked as quickly as possible. Even though it is the last SMG to get it unlocked, it's definitely worthwhile getting there. Thank you all so much for making your way to the end of the video. Make sure you have dropped a like and a subscribe ready for the next episode in the Guns Guide series. And massive thank you to the Babylonian family. As always, their names will be appearing at the end of every single one of our videos. And that just leaves me to say, keep yourself safe, keep yourself well, and I'll see you all on our next video.